Hi, and welcome to the OrgDev podcast. So what if the future of HR isn't about getting a seat at the table, but actually redesigning the table altogether? In a world shaped by paradox, uncertainty, and stakeholder pressure, the next generation of HR leaders must be architects of value, not just participants in strategy. And it's not about HR for HR's sake, it's about creating human capability that drives stakeholder value for employees, customers, communities, investors, and boards. And that means rethinking everything from the outside in. Today, we're joined from the US by the father of modern HR, Dave Ulrich, and the father of HRD in India, TV Rao. We're absolutely honoured to be joined by two architects of the Global HR Leadership Experience, a new 100-day development programme aimed at preparing the next generation of HR leaders who can deliver for multiple stakeholders in a global context. Dave Ulrich and TV Rao are two of the most influential voices in the evolution of HR, and now they've come together with some of the very best in HR to shape its future. Dave Ulrich needs little introduction. He has shaped the field through decades of pioneering research, practice and writing. He's the Rensis Leichhardt Professor at the University of Michigan and a partner of the RBL Group. He's authored over 30 books and 200 articles, and he's delivered workshops in 90 countries and advised over half of the Fortune 200 companies. His frameworks have become staples in both academic and practitioner circles. And even in that illustrious career, Dave continues to ask provocative questions about how HR and leadership create value for stakeholders, not just shareholders. Professor TV Rao is widely regarded as a pioneering force in shaping the field of human resource development globally. He co-founded the National HRD Network and was instrumental in establishing the first HRD department in India in 1975. Professor Rao served as a professor for over 20 years and later chaired the Rao Group of Institutions and GHRLE, his HRD-focused consulting firm. He's played a critical role in building HRD as a discipline rooted in Indian organisations and contexts, and he's authored 60 books and research papers, which is incredible. He advises governments, public sector and private sector organisations and educational institutions in India and globally. His lifelong mission remains strengthening institutions and individuals through values-based development, leadership and learning. And Danny and I are absolutely honoured to have you join us today, gentlemen, so thank you.
As Gary said, we're delighted to have you with us. So just to kick us off, so you've both kind of shaped the field of HR and OD for decades. As you look at the profession now, what feels most urgent to you about how we develop our HR functions and our HR leaders?
Well, I think we have seen in India, at least HR go through a whole series of stages. The first stage when we started human resource development was largely focused on personnel administration and a little bit of welfare, employee welfare. When we did our work with Larsen and Toubro and asked people what kind of performance appraisal we want to, that is how we started. Most of the managers said that if we have to perform, we want the organization to create conditions for us to perform, which means help us to be committed to the job, which means you should understand our needs and things like that. So we came up with a 3C framework at the time, which is building competencies constantly. We didn't use the term competency at the time. That was not the currency. Currency came much later. We used the term attributes, building attributes, qualities required to perform the job, and also culture, create culture in the organization, which we call as enabling culture. So commitment, competence, and culture building. I think this is how and we thought that the personnel department is not equipped to do this because personnel was largely administration. Administration meant rules and regulations, telling people what to do, what not to do. So we said we need to create a new department, and that is when we created a human resource development function with about 6 subsystems at the time. And soon we found that there's quite a bit of, that was the years when in US, training and development was getting the new term called human resource development. And many who went to US came back to India and converted their training department into HRD. And we thought that was a dilution of the entire HRD concept which we had. And that is how we formed the National HRD Network to promote HRD as a philosophy. Post-liberalization, India was, I think, the first 20 years, 1975 to 92, 93, was in a different world altogether, very closed kind of a country. 92, 93, when we liberalized and then we let multinationals come in, the standards changed. Quality became very important. That's a Japanese influence, and productivity, business, profits, and there was a huge employee retrenchment. And then IT, some of the IT companies came into picture. So the focus shifted to quality and productivity, KRAs, KPAs, and things like that. Post 2010, I think we got into employee engagement, employee experience, and things like that. Post pandemic, I think it moved to now ensuring that the people have a quality of life to live. Therefore, in a country like India, and that's true, I suppose, in most of the world, families are important, relationships are important, security is important, mental health is important, and so on. And now we are in a phase in the last 2 to 3 years, AI is shaking the world. And I think India is known to be quick, at least in talking about adopting it. So we are in a technology world where everyone is questioning, and a lot of employee turnover, a lot of employee turmoil, a lot of VUCA uncertainty that are happening. So HR has phenomenal challenges. I see it as a lot of opportunities for HR, because for me, people and business are two sides of the same coin. You can't do business without people. Business is meant for people, and it is people who do business. So I think that's the way it is. So that's where we are, and that's where the program that which Dave and the team are offering, in which I happen to be a small partner in this GHRLE, is something which prepares people, leaders for the future, to be future HR leaders, laying solid foundations, being sensitive to the communities, contexts that are changing. I think what Dave calls as inflection points.
I'm just going to suggest that the future builds on that, and in two ways, three ways. Number one, as Dr. T.V. Rao said, this is an inflection point. And the inflection point, you said it, Garen, very nicely, is HR is not about HR. It's about winning in the marketplace. Because if we don't succeed in the marketplace, there's going to be no workplace. And so we're seeing an evolution that's a pretty dramatic one, that when I in HR go into a meeting, I don't start by talking about my HR program, hybrid work, leadership, culture, compensation. I start by talking about, what do our customers need? What do our investors need? And as TV said so well, what do our quality of life with families? So for me, an inflection point is HR is not about HR. It's more about building success in the marketplace. And that's different. I think that affects OD. If I'm an OD person, I'm not here to facilitate a team just to get the team working better together. I'm doing it so that that team together will help the organization where I live be more successful in the market.
What's going to really help HR leaders make that connection between human capability and kind of business value and stakeholder value and customer value?
When you can answer that, you will never need to do a podcast again. I mean, it's one of the challenges. I mean, and I'll give myself as an example.
Yeah.
I go to by the way, I'm being personal here to make this real. I go to a doctor and they do all the checks, and then they close the door and say, I'm going to tell you something really unique. You need to lose weight. And I'm going, really? I know that. I think a lot of what we know, and TV, you did it so well, we know about commitment and culture, we know about quality, we know these things. And this is where we need the discipline to turn what we know into what we do. We're trying to do it. And some of it is training, some of it is mindset, some of it is behavior. But we hope we can help people, the next generation especially, build that value that they want to create. That doesn't mean I'm going to I always ask people what they had, and I need to be eating rice for dinner to be more like TV. I'd love to ask you, Danny, what does it take to make change happen? We know what to do, but we don't do it very well.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think part of it is making space to do it,
Nice.
kind of building that space into our diaries and our way of working so that we're not constantly kind of reacting and firefighting. There's something about us as a profession creating a space to go, actually, I'm going to take a step back.
We're designing a 100-day training journey, 8 days in person, and people are saying, can you name that 8 days and do it in maybe 4, maybe 3, maybe 2, maybe do one podcast, and I'll listen to it while I'm driving to work, and then I'll change. No. I love that comment. Behavior change doesn't come quickly or easily. It takes space and time. Thank you. That's so well said.
Because one of the questions I want to ask is like, where do sort of HR teams get their cues from? Because again, if you're in that reactive mode, you haven't necessarily studied in the strategy in the way it needs to. Sometimes it's not explicit what HR teams need to do within the strategy. You have to read between the lines, but there's also other places they need to look as well in terms of what needs to be done. So where do you sort of see modern HR leaders needing to look to get their cues about what they need to do?
Is this an encouragement to pitch your podcast? They need to go to OrgDev and listen. I think we in HR need to take our cues from being really focused on the business. I'm going to go back and give a little very simple case. I'm trying to do a training program. I'm trying to do a compensation program. So I go into an executive team and I say, here's my training program, or here's my compensation program. That's the wrong signal. I think when you walk into that room as an HR or OD professional, your first observation is, here's what customers in our industry need from us. Here's why investors are investing in us. I was in one firm, their price earnings ratio was 20% below the industry average. They were a 40 billion US company, 40 billion picket. That's $8 billion. I said that to the HR person. He said, why are you talking about this? I'm talking about it because if your work in training and compensation and culture and development doesn't affect that price earnings ratio, then you're not going to be relevant. I said it to the executive team, and the executive CEO looked at me and he said, you don't think I know that? If I can't fix that 20% gap in price earnings, the value of my stock versus competitors, I'm going to become a consultant. That's a bad joke. And if you can't help me fix that, then I'm not going to be able to help. And I think if that's the mindset, it is so critical. I'll give one quick example. Retail store, big retail store, it could be anywhere. It could be in the UK, it happened to be in the US. New head of HR. She did some research, and we need data. Where does this come from? We need data. She found in stores that had an average employee engagement, the basket size was $40, pounds, euro, rupees. In stores with higher employee engagement, the basket size was 48. $100 billion firm. She said it's a 20% increase in basket size if I can increase employee engagement. Everybody said, oh, you're going to go ask for $500,000 to build a training program. She said, no, I want to create 20 billion. And when she walked in and said, I'm here to help us create 20 billion, everybody said, it's too much. She said, good, cut it in half, 10 billion. She didn't ask for 500,000. She asked for $1 billion. That's the new HR. Isn't that exciting? And she got it. She got it. To me, that's kind of redefining HR, not from inside what we do, but what's that going to create in terms of revenue and investors and customers and communities? It would be really fun to listen to your podcast over the last few months. What percent of time do these OD specialists talk about the customer, the investor, the community, and the value we're creating because of what we do? That's Danny and Garen. That's the mindset we want to begin to create for next generation HR.
I guess like looking at the program that you're doing, the flow kind of represents that the stepping stones, doesn't it? Because you kind of sort of start with the environmental context, getting people to actually look up and look out, which is the beginning of it, and then the skills and all those particular components then slip into place, don't they?
I get so excited. I'm sorry, TV, I'm speaking because I get so excited about this. One of the things we're going to do with the environment, we've got TV Rao's going to talk about India. Arthur Young's going to talk about China. Pet Chem's going to talk about Asia and the World Federation. We've got the leading thinkers in every part of the world. David Green's going to talk about Europe. We've got the leading players in every part of the world saying, what's going on in the world around us? We in HR need to be conversant about that. And I think that's the logic that we hope to bring. And once you start with that outside context, context is content is king, but context is the kingdom. That's a great quote from Bill Gates. That if we know the context, we can then begin to build what we do inside to respond. So we are so committed to building the next generation. And as are you. You said it in your introduction. How do you build the next generation HR leaders who will know the context and then build the right content to respond to that context?
Hi, we're just pausing this interview for a moment. Have you ever finished an episode of the OrgDev podcast and wish you had a cheat sheet that summarizes all of the key points? Us too, so we made one. It's called From Pod to Practice, and each week in our newsletter we'll share a 2-page summary of the latest OrgDev episode, and it includes key takeaways, a reflection prompt, and one small action you can try.
And it's all in a digital format with space at the end to add your own notes and reflections, and it's designed to help you take the learning from the podcast into your day-to-day work. So to get your copy, just sign up to our Next Step to Better newsletter. The link's in the show notes, or you can visit our website at www.distinction.live to get the latest from pod to practice in your inbox. And let us know what you think. We'd love to get your feedback.
Question just for you, Dr. Rao, is as you've come together with other leaders from other parts of the world, what are you sort of seeing as like sort of common challenges that are facing organisations at the moment, and what are sort of unique to India and Southern Asia?
In India, there is not one set of HR people. There are lots and lots of quite a variety in the HR. But one of the issues with which most HR people are stuck, at one time, they were not at all business driven. They had no idea of business. They were largely number driven, and they treated people as numbers. Thanks to, I think, Dave and also a number of us who started talking about HR as a business partner, there was gradual shift of focus, and people now started looking at business, and they think that they have a good role to play. But even there, many of them are driven by, again, numbers. I would still think that they are target driven rather than business driven. I think that's where there is a biggest challenge. Earlier you asked the question, how do we get this mindset to change? It takes time, but I think we'll have to get them to audit themselves. I mean, this is something which we introduced. Can you take some time off? Look back, see what you are doing, see what others are doing. Can you learn? Can you understand the environment in which? I think this is something of a big challenge, getting people to take time off, think, reflect, learn, and then plan to redo things. I think this requires quite a bit of a mindset change. I think we are at this. I think there are some good examples across the globe. So I think that's something which we are working on. And interestingly, in India, HRD and OD work as two streams, different streams. There are a whole set of people who were influenced by NTL and started also an association, the Indian Society for Applied Behavioral Sciences. And they run ODCP program, Organization Development Program, which is purely process driven. They only sensitize people to processes, and they just don't get into any systems. In fact, they're quite anti-structure, anti-systems and so on. HRD people, on the other hand, are a lot more systems driven, a lot more structured, and we're trying to marry both these. When we started the first HRD department in 1970s, we said OD should be a part of HRD. Every HR person should be a process consultant. If you have to build organizational capabilities, team capabilities, you need to be sensitive to this. Now, this happened because Uday Parikh, my colleague, who is my senior consultant at the time, he is no more. He died in the year 2010. This is the 100th year we are celebrating his centenary. He came from a background of both, and he worked with NTL. He was the first Asian fellow to be put as the NTL fellow, and worked with agriculture, with rural sector, with education, and so on. So I think this impacted us. Both of us were teachers in terms of our own background. I think that is how we could see for us, HRD is a philosophy, is a value, as a whole orientation. And OD is that one of the tasks that you can do as a HR person, to constantly build in-house capability, to get people to review themselves, diagnose themselves, and so on. That is still taking time. I don't think we are anywhere. I see this GHRLE as a great OD intervention, if you really look at it, because we are now going beyond organization. We are also saying that, look, as a HR leader, you have also a responsibility to the community, to the customers, to all stakeholders. That's the most important part of it we are trying to. It takes time, but I think somewhere you have to begin. And reflection, taking time off, I think that way this 100-day engagement, even a weeks together, sharing views, ideas, we think could go a long way in building preparedness for this.
One of the things on the agenda for the program you talk about, and we're contractually obliged to talk about this, is AI. And you talk about accessing and using AI for business to leverage HR's impact. It's such a hot topic, and it is having such a big impact at the moment as well. What is it that you're looking to sort of equip HR leaders with as we sort of enter this new era of AI usage?
We could spend many podcasts on this, but I'm gonna give you I love simplicity. My PhD is in taxonomy, which is the science of simple. So I take a step back. What is AI all about? It's very simple. It's about information that improves decisions. That's it. AI accesses information. So we go on AI, we get it. 2 years ago, our daughter, who's a professor, called me and she said, Dad, my job's over. She teaches sociology. And I said, why is that? I said, students will never write a paper again. All they're going to do is go on ChatGPT or some other instrument and they're going to send in a paper. My job's completely over. And I said, that can't be true. So I quickly got on ChatGPT or the latest version and I said, what's the future of HR in 300 words? Boom. I called her back and I said, Monica, sweetheart, my job's over too. Because that was a pretty good answer. And then I looked at it. AI is an incredible enabler of information. And now it's agentic AI. You have algorithms which become robots. But I looked at it again and I thought, wow, that's a paragraph from TV Rao. That's Linda Grattan. That's Peter Capelli. It's not the future. AI does a brilliant job doing research and summarizing what's been done. It cannot yet create the future. And so I think AI needs that human creativity to build the future. A second thing in AI that is, again, AI is so helpful. You can't deny it accesses information in an incredible way. The first one is we need the human touch to generate the future. Second, I've been using a formula lately, and I've not published it. I will this week, I think. AI times AI. AI is artificial intelligence, the algorithms, times authentic intimacy. Authentic intimacy. I think there is still something to be said to look and to see that somebody I've just gotten to know loves Legos. Well, AI wouldn't have that. It's a form of intimacy to know something about her values. It's a form of intimacy to look at somebody. I know right now with next gen, some people are getting therapy through AI. To be honest, that scares me. It scares me because I think there is a need for the artificial intelligence times the employee empathy, the authentic intimacy that comes from relationships. So those are my two. AI is phenomenal. You can't deny it.
Do you feel that HR has a role to play in helping organizations shape the doctrine around AI? Because you can easily tactically fall into AI and it can sort of make micro decisions, but the ability to sort of take a step back and say, what is the role of AI? Is it to enhance human performance or to save costs? Does HR have a place?
I'll add one more. I mean, AI right now, if you look at revenue and divided by cost, top line revenue divided by cost, AI is almost all focused on cost. We'll take out people, we'll be more efficient, we'll drive efficiency as we access information. I think HR has to shape the agenda to, yes, focus on cost, but also focused on revenue. How do you get information about customers and investors and build market value through that information? So I'm a realist about AI. There's also a lot of fake. I've been scammed on LinkedIn where people were using AI posts to critique me. And when I went back and said, why did you critique me? They said, it wasn't me. It was a robot. And so I've seen the risk, and I think we need HR to manage some of that silly risk as well. You probably have opinions. You've interviewed AI experts. I worry a little bit about the hype. Let's get back to the reality. What can it actually do? So
yeah, I think I've heard you sort of say that it's both underhyped and overhyped.
Yeah, my take on AI is that it's a great tool, but I don't think we have prepared ourselves to use it properly in human resource HR management at all. Now, what do I mean by this? I think it's a great tool to understand people. In medical science, I think we have developed a hell of a lot, and it's a great diagnostic tool because you have, I think, basics are clear. But in HR, we still are struggling with Maslow's need hierarchy, and we have not gone beyond that to understand what is it in the changed context people need, what are the needs of people, what are the aspirations of people, and things like that. If we only have basic data collected, I think it will be in a totally, it will create a totally different way of handling HR. What I mean by that is today, if you are doing anything like a competence, we're still using the past language and past experiences. We have not gone to people. We've not even recorded what people are capable of doing. Now we are seeing young children, I think 3 years old, 5 years old, are pretty good in even creating games. I think that's a phenomenal competency that we are observing. Now HR is just not prepared to do that. We're still working with the traditional mindset. So in my view, HR as a technology tool, if it has to be used, we have to start all over again and start asking basic questions to understand human nature. If you don't understand human nature and you don't create, I think Dave said a very important thing, it's nothing but it's information. And where are you getting this information? We are using the current models of information to work for the future. That is not adequate at all. I think entire performance management will take a different turn if you start relooking at this. Recruitment will take a different turn. Like, for example, if today, if you have to recruit somebody, you look at how technology is savvy, how interested is this person in learning about technology. Just that much. But more importantly, how this person cares about other human beings, about the other human beings all around, which is very, very important. Empathy, emotions, feelings, mental health. I think these are the things which seem to be creating. Today, employee preferences are totally different. We're still struggling with employee experience defined in the olden days. Are you happy with the furniture you have? Are you happy with the leader? I think we're not going beyond in terms of what is it that you want to do in life. People have totally different aspirations. I was just watching a movie in local language where the 12th grade student says that he wants to be a designer of shoes. And the father is scolding him and saying, "You, all your life, I wanted you to be a technologist, go for engineering. You want to repair shoes?" He says, "No, I'm not repairing shoes. I want to design. Designing shoes totally will it's a $1 billion market across the world." Parents don't understand that. See, I think it's a basic kind of a question that we are in a different world. We need to understand the technology. We need to understand the human being and so on. So AI, as Dave mentioned, is a great tool, but I think we have to learn to use it and use it very cautiously. And it's, I think, for human welfare. That is the most important thing. Purpose of AI should be for human welfare. But what's happening today is it is resulting in job losses. Very unfortunate. I think people are not using it carefully, ethically, and intellectually. They are not future driven at all. They are very much target driven. Can I get my profit for tomorrow? It doesn't. What happens tomorrow? No. Day after tomorrow, I don't care about it. Sell my company and then make some passbook and move out. I think they're all issues that need to be looked at. So it will disrupt quite a bit in the society, but I think at least some of us, particularly HR people, have to be value driven, promote integrity, and ethical use of AI become very, very important.
And that takes courage, doesn't it, as an HR professional to speak up and challenge that when it's all about, let's use AI to cut costs and reduce headcount, and we need to encourage our profession to be brave and step forward and be courageous. I'm just thinking, as we're talking about getting the HR profession to kind of be more commercial and think about value creation and think about AI, it feels like the role and the remit is getting kind of heavier, and there's more expectations and more complexity, and how do we enable the function and the profession really to lean into those things? Is that kind of the genesis of the new program that you've been pulling together? Was that trying to answer that?
Absolutely. I mean, inflection point number one, HR is not about HR. It's about creating value for stakeholders. That's an inflection point. Number two, HR is not just about talent. It's about what we call human capability. That's people, my fingers, organization. That's where, when you said you're from OD, it softened my heart. I began my career in OD. In fact, I'll tell a quick story. When I was doing my PhD, you had to do an exam before you could do dissertation. And you had, I think, 48 hours to write an essay. I still remember the essay. I think I have it somewhere. I should have looked it up. When, why, and how will OD OD? When, why, and how will OD OD? And I thought it was a really creative 15-page essay. I turned it into my PhD committee. I went into the room and they said, "Dave, this is very clever. We're going to find out in 6 months if you can be serious," which meant that I'd failed my exam. But I still believe OD, you got talent and you got organization. All of our research says which is more critical, the people or the system, the individual or the team, the workforce or the workplace. And it's 3-to-1 organization. It's 3-to-1 in all of the research we found. An individual can win a championship or be a champion, but the team wins the championship. In sports, in movies, I love that OD focus. I love that OD focus. And that's the second inflection point. HR is not just about the people. It's about the team and how the people come together. And we're going to try to build that. We're going to try to make that happen. So will we be successful? I feel like Sisyphus. I'm old. I've been in this career while I keep trying to move that rock up a hill. I think we're getting closer because our focus is no longer on the rock. It's on what's on the other side of the hill. What's the value we're creating? What's the value we're creating? through talent, organization, and then the third dimension is leadership. Are we building leaders at all levels of the company? So, Danny, and then we built into a training program everything you'd expect. We have assessments, we have guidance, we have coaches, we have in-person, off-person. I mean, we're doing all of the things that you would assume go into an effective training program, but we hope that it'll work, and we're really excited. I see right now there's a big turnover in HR, senior HR leaders, and the CEOs who are picking their heads of HR are going outside the company. I think that's unfortunate. We want to build a trove of future HR people, many from OD, many from any area, who can create stakeholder value for their company.
And the program actually has sort of a unique pedagogy to it, doesn't it? Because it is like a 100-day program. It's different kinds of platforms of bringing people together and whatnot as well. And that's quite different to a lot of programs that are out there. Was that sort of designed with intention to make it stick over time, was it?
Absolutely. I mean, the goal here is not just an idea, it's an idea with impact. And changing, and that's what scares me, is a lot of people say, oh, I'm going to listen to this podcast and my life will be changed. I don't want to pop a bubble that you guys believe, but it's not easy. I mean, I need to lose weight. The doctor tells me. I told the doctor I've carried this weight for 50 years. I'm pretty comfortable with it, and it's going to take time to change. And I think that 100 days gives us a chance to do that. And the cool thing is, everybody who attends is going to find a cohort of new colleagues. We need new people to work with, and we'll find that. So I'm so grateful for people like TV and Pet Chem and Arthur Young, and I start listing, I get in trouble. But we have really got an all-star cast of thought leaders who have said, here's the content. Can you now build a pedagogy that will help make that happen?
Dave, I think we didn't talk about it. I must admit that your writings have had some impact on me. I used to be focused on individual development, but now I'm convinced that over focus on individual development creates a society of selfish people. I think that is what we. So even in this program, I ask myself this question: what are we doing to change the organization, build organizational capabilities? I think I have an answer. I'm sure you would agree with me. Maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. While we have let's say one participant, two participants, we suggested two people from each organization so that there can be mutual support. Even if there is one, the 30-day preparation and the 60-day follow-up are going to involve a sizable number of people through this one individual who is going to participate. That is how I see as building capabilities of the organization. While the intervention, GHRLE, is meant to build a few CHROs to be future leaders, it is taking the system along. I think we are also touching the other people. This is what I assume. Would you agree with that?
Very well said.
I was just saying, I think that's an important element, isn't it? Because a lot of people get sent off on public programs and they still come back to the culture that they were working in as well. So there is something around it. And one of the things that you do there is you actually get people to engage with the person who commissions the work and that they're informed and they can support, because you do need that supportive context. Because I think Danny and I were talking about it. So Danny, you were sort of saying, well, you went away on a program, didn't you? And when you went back, the organization hadn't changed, but you had.
I felt transformed by the experience of kind of an OD program at Roffey Park, and went back into the same organization, and I felt radically different, and I wanted to do things differently, but the system around me just perhaps wasn't ready for it. So it's quite difficult, I think, as an individual.
Well, in fact, sometimes what we found, and we've done those, I've been part of those programs. People go back and they say, wow, I was at Roffey Park OD program for 2 weeks. And I say, were you really gone? And it's hard. And we're really trying to get projects and applications that change also the personal mindset. And how do you sustain that? And then how do you weave that into the organization? You've been a part of OD. I'd love to ask you, what's the biggest agenda for OD to have more impact? I wrote this essay 40 years ago, When, Why, and Will OD? I'm still struggling from having failed my exam. But what's your sense? What's OD got to do to have a bigger impact? You've had 78 sessions, 85 countries. What do you sense that OD has to do to have a bigger impact? It's always fun to be the questionnaire of people who do these podcasts.
No, we like this. We like this.
Well, and I love learning from you. That's why we're here.
Well, I think the catchphrase that all organization development practitioners have is "it depends." But I don't think that's a good enough reason for it. I would probably say that for OD, probably one of the in the 20 years I've been doing OD, I've never been asked to do OD it always comes as a problem. It always comes as an ambition or a hope for the organization. And so it is really about helping the world understand what OD does and the value that it brings. It is not about coming up with one definition of it, because having interviewed you guys are episode 78, so that's 78 conversations, and there's no one way, and it's a very broad church, and there's a lot of different methodologies. And one of the things about OD is that it's not regulated, nor is it licensed as well, so that brings lots of variety. But I think it's really sort of starting to understand what is the value that we bring to organizations, and it's not purely about individual development, like Dr. Rao was saying. It's about the fact that you have to work with the system. You know, you have to have an appreciation of it and how it works, and that you have to change those things around people in order for them to change as well.
I'd build on that, and I think some of the things we talked about earlier in this conversation about really kind of making that connection to the value creation and the point of what we're doing, and the so what and why we're doing it really matters. I think some of the unique value we bring, particularly in our work, is often when we're working, with HR functions, they're quite siloed. So the talent team doesn't talk to the business partner team, doesn't talk to the onboarding team. So there's something really important about making the case for the value of that integration across kind of sub-functions as well.
I heard two things. Let me play back to make sure I learned. One is the so that question. I'm going to facilitate a team. I'm going to manage training. So that. And the so that forces a mindset outside yourself. The value of what we do is to create value in others. That's one. And the second is because of. So we look at, here's a problem, we'll fix it because of an integrated solution. And Danny, you said we don't want to come with pieces. We don't want to come with parts. We want to build an integrated. That's where the team, my fist, the organization is more important than the individual. That you can have individuals who are really good. In football, the winner of the Golden Boot is on the team that wins the World Cup 20% of the time. 80% of the time, it's the teamwork that makes the World Cup happen. And the same is true in basketball. The same is true in football. In any team sport, the collective of the team. And that I really like, Danny, is coming together. And so that. Those are the two. That's what I heard you say.
I guess what have you both most enjoyed about being involved in the development of the program so far?
I've enjoyed the people I'm working with. We often see people as names. When I went to Michigan, I saw the name C.K. Prahalad, he was ranked in the Thinkers 50 #1 for 10 years in a row. And he was probably ranked too low. What was really fun for me, started teaching in the program that he ran. And I was new faculty, and he came and he said, Dave, what's your point of view about leadership and culture and organization? I said, here's the research. And he said, what's your point of view? And I said, here's the research. And he walked away. And I could tell he was pretty annoyed. I did not have a point of view. About a year later, I said, CK, sit down. Here's my point of view. And he argued with me. And I argued with him. And he stood up and he put his arm around me and said, you're now on the team. I don't want somebody who can parrot other people's ideas. I want somebody who can create a point of view that shapes others. That's what we found. TV Rao, Pet Chem, David Green, boy, I just Pat Wright, Dick Beatty. I mean, I start going through the all-stars. These are all fellows in the Academy of Management. They're distinguished fellows, Bill Conity, the most incredible group of people, and getting to see their point of view at a personal level, not what they write and some editor has edited, but here's how they think. And when CK puts his arm around me and he says, you're now on the team, I think we're seeing the players. For me, that's been a remarkable. Wouldn't it be cool to listen to Peter Drucker think? How did you think about this? Or Ardress. I had a chance, Chris Ardress in OD. I had a chance to sit with Chris Ardress. He was a curmudgeon. He was obnoxious. And he challenged everything I said. And I thought, Jay Galbraith in OrgDesign, I had a chance to work with Jay. I am now working with some of the brightest and best people. Pet Chem, again, and TV, thank you for Arthur Young, others for joining us. That's been my takeaway.
Brilliant. And that's an opportunity for that to be embedded in this next generation as well.
Oh, I hope. I mean, one of the metaphors is come into our home, see how we think. I mean, learn with us. And I like that. TV can talk about his view, but that's been really helpful for me.
Life is continuous learning. Every day is a learning. Every person you meet is a source of learning. I think we need to appreciate, learn from this. And today, I think I'm like what Dave says. I keep saying that, look, HR is not anymore the job of HR department. It is a job of everyone. we are our own HR managers. In fact, I think like you started introducing us, some people say Father of HRD, and I like Dave. I think you mentioned I have three children. None of them is HRD. Nandini, Raju, and Kritika. These are the three names of HR. And then I go on to say, everyone is his or her own father or mother of your HRD. You take charge of your HR. And in order to do that, the job of HR is to inculcate this kind of a continuous learning spirit. I think for me, life has been a series of learnings, and every period, like every phase that we pass it through, has offered phenomenal things. And I've had some of the best teachers in my life. I've learned a hell of a lot from all my teachers, and I'm constantly learning. When I read LinkedIn posts of Dave and a number of others, I think it impacts me. I think about it. I see where I agree, where I don't agree. If I don't agree, I will look inward. Why am I not agreeing? Is there some bias that I have? So I think there's a lot of absorption capacity to keep appreciating. I love uh, reading and then appreciating others' point of view and see the similarities. I quite often see similarities rather than differences and so on. I think there is so much fun.
I'm going to give an
The
example.
same way,
I'm going to give an example of the beauty of getting to know people. And I showed this before. TV Rao is the father in India. I have been called the father of HR. This is my family. We've been married 50 years. So this year, my children dressed up in the 70s. Notice the blue suits and all this stuff. And it's kind of fun to see what are people like outside of their formal work. So that's where I am a father. I have 3 children as well and 10 grandchildren. And so we dressed up and we made fun of ourselves. You know, I think that's fun to see how people really live and practice the principles. For me, that was CK. When CK, a brilliant, brilliant thinker, I think one of the most brilliant thinkers in the world, puts his arm around me. Well, he challenges me. He said, "You don't have a point of view. I can't work with you well." But when I get one, he disagrees with me. He didn't say, "Thank you for your point of view." He said, "No, you got it wrong." And by the way, I looked at him and he said, "You got it wrong. That's not what HR is." I said, "How can you say that? Strategy isn't what you say either." And we argued in love. And we hope those who attend this program will have that experience, getting to know the next generation so that we pass it on. And that's the hope.
And that really hits on an OD principle, which is like change happens through dialogue. You know, those exchanging of views and articulating it's so important. And that's why there should always be a place for that face-to-face of. And I guess when you do programs like this, the bonds are built far beyond the lifetime of the program, aren't they? They go far beyond it, and they become your network that you lean on in difficult times and good times as well.
We know that. We've taught 100 of these 2-week programs without the 100-day at Michigan, and the network that leaves there are cohorts. And we'll create that with the 100 days. So, and that's, I think, what Danny said earlier is the importance of the connection that brings people together. The other thing that's really intrigued me is I've gotten to know these folks, and for the most part, they're older. They've done over 100 books. The HR CHROs who are presenting as faculty have been heads of HR in 30 companies. I mean, it's a remarkable cohort. Is their goodness? Is their personal goodness? We say, "Why are you doing this program?" It isn't for money. And they're saying, "I really believe that what we in HR offer is a way for people in organizations to have a better life. And if I can build HR leaders for the next generation who have that, what Dr. TV Rao said, the quality of life with family, with community, if we can help HR people build that, it's amazing." I was in a session recently with some CHROs, and I added up, there were about 30 of them. I said, the 30 of you represent 8 to 10 million employees. Stop and think about that. I mean, we had big companies. We had Walmart, we had McDonald's, but the 30 of you directly impact 8 to 10 million employees, plus families, every month. What a privilege. And it's also it's a stewardship. Actually, it would be so cool to go through your 78 podcasts and find out how many employees are represented by those who presented. The ideas of those 78 podcasts, they're probably at least 10 million, maybe 20 million people directly. Why do we still do this? That's my passion at a much more personal level.
I think I'm like what Dave says. I enjoy every bit of what I do, and I think that's so wonderful and so nice of you to have got us into this. And thanks, Dave. I think it was your suggestion that got me involved in this. And thanks a lot. I think it's
If people are interested in, because obviously I think we've just done the tip of the iceberg in terms of the coverage of what the program is about and all the different parts and all the different faculty that run it as well. If people are interested in learning more about the program or even following your extensive research and writing, what's the best way for people to reach out to
Go on
learn more about the
LinkedIn.
program?
Go on LinkedIn. I've done a lot of books, and what we're doing with the podcast and LinkedIn is so much more fun because it's engaging. So follow me on LinkedIn. You'll see it. You'll see the program. You'll see the nomination. You'll see the design. And if you make comments, somebody said, who makes all those comments? And it's me. I'll spend 2 to 3 hours a day making comments on LinkedIn. And I love it because you don't look at who the person is commenting. You look at the quality of their thinking. And TV Rao, you said it. You want to learn. You want somebody who challenges you. I get challenged by folks, I don't know where they're from. They're from Sri Lanka. They're from Bosnia.
Yes.
I get challenged by folks in Iraq where I can't visit, but they're doing some marvelous work in Iran right now in HR. Marvelous work. And I really love that engagement.
And we'll have a link to the program in the show notes as well. So if you are interested and want to learn more about it, and there's a lot to learn, then please do click on the show notes and learn more about it and have an opportunity to work with people like. So thank you so much for your time, gentlemen. It's been an absolute honour to have you on. Thank you for joining and giving up your evening for us, Dr. Rao, to be with us. And thank you for joining us for breakfast as well. Dave as well, joining us all the way from the US. It's lovely. I know our audience will get so much joy from it. And on behalf of the OD and the HR profession, a huge thank you to both of you for leaving such a brilliant legacy and continue to do such great work as well. So thank you.
Thank you.